So last time I talked about one of the worst Greyhawk novels out there, and now I want to talk about one of the best Greyhawk novels. Today on Greyhawk Grognard. So here we have Saga of Old City. This was the first Gord the Rogue novel that Gygax wrote, and it is still remains one of the best Greyhawk novels out there. It tells the story of Gord, who is starts off as an orphan and ends up becoming a beggar, and then has various adventures across the world of Greyhawk. And what I love about this book is that it really gives a glimpse into the way that Gary wanted his campaign role to be perceived. It's not necessarily the way he ran his campaign. In Lake Geneva at the time, but it's how he wanted it to come across to other people. I think it's aspirational in that sense. This is how he thinks that a D&D campaign should look and should feel. The book itself is divided into six different parts. It's got a whole. It does carry forth a whole arc for Gord himself, but it's distinctly separated into different parts, and you can kind of tell that. They were. It's almost like different adventures, strung together in a campaign, which is kind of neat. First, he starts off as a beggar in Old City, hence the name. Then he becomes one of the Rennehi, the barge folk. He joins them and learns various things from them about uh, uh, con games and thievery and most importantly, acrobatics, because this was around the same time that Unearthed Arcana came out. So we have the idea that Gore becomes a thief acrobat. He then travels to Stoink, which we also know was an important part of Gary's campaign. He had actually once teased that he was going to do a module about Stoink called Wasp's Nest, the city-state of Stoink. And apparently they did a lot of adventuring in there. It's a city in the Bandit Kingdoms, so that gives you an idea. It's basically this big, uh, not lawless but close to it town with the Thieves Guild has a prominent and open house and everything like that. It's pretty cool. Then he travels. He rescues the damsel in distress, Evele, and travels to the Blemu Hills to return her to her father, who is the Count of Blemu. And then you get this kind of political maneuvering where the King of Nyrond is kind of suspicious of what's going on. So um, they imprison Gord for various things, and then his companion Geller has to go rescue him, but he's already almost rescued himself, so they become traveling companions. And then the Battle of Woodford, which is in the Grand Wood in the Great Kingdom, and there we see that's where he finally meets his friend Chert the Barbarian, and Curly Greenleaf, who was apparently one of Gygax's own characters. He's a half-elven druid. And finally, they have an adventure where they investigate a tomb in the cairn in the Aber Isles, which is the line of hills around the Bright Desert and the mountains in the middle of it. So it kind of strings together a number of disparate things. But again, they do have an overarching arc, which is very satisfying. There's a wonderful moment at the very end where one of the people from the very beginning of the book gets his comeuppance at Gord's hands. So it's also nice. Hi, everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and now back to the show. But there's a very interesting passage. I love this, and this will give you an idea of what Gygax is aiming for here. I'm just going to read this one little piece. Events that occur as Gord travels across the lands around Greyhawk City, the Near Dive, and elsewhere in the Flanaess, the eastern portion of the continent of Orc on the planet Earth. uh, are as they might happen to adventurers traveling the same places in my campaign. Encounters are not frequent in civilized places, for mankind has a way of ridding itself of unwanted monsters and bothersome pests of dangerous sort. The high road of adventure is an amalgam of medieval travel and confrontations with human-type enemies. Occasional monsters to add spice are put in by the pinch rather than liberally sprinkled with unrealistic abandon. Um, Now, compare that to the encounter tables that we see in the DM's guide, which are the wilderness encounter tables, which are mostly monsters. But if you look at the encounter tables in the glossography with the gold box, you'd see a lot more of this kind of encounter in there, specifically for Greyhawk. There's a lot of bandits and soldiers and things like that. So that does kind of track. This does set up a whole series of books. Obviously, the first two were written while he was at TSR, and then the rest he retained the rights to the characters and stuff. And as part of his settlement when he left, he was able to continue the series. And while they're really really good, you can tell he was getting a little bitter because at the end of the series. Basically, Greyhawk doesn't exist anymore, so yeah, a little bitterness thrown in there. But like it's understandably so. But the first two, are obviously very canonical. They it kind of diverges from canon as you get further and further because there are events that uh, should be well known and they're not outside of the books. So it's set in. They don't really give the year, but based on some of the characters that we see, Naroth Gaskell is in there, and he's also mentioned in other places. So that lets us time things to about the late 570s, early 580s, which is exactly what I would expect because at the time that was the default timeline of the setting, the 576, 78 era in there. So this is probably the second half of the book after Gord grows up and leaves the beggars guild. Um, uh, yeah, so it's set in that same time frame, I think. But again, they don't give an exact date, but it does fit that period. So it is dripping with detail for the setting and for the city, especially if you're running a game in Greyhawk. Get a copy of this and read it. They're in short supply in the aftermarket because they're very sought after. You can tell, my copy's very beat up. But uh, Prolord Games is hopefully going to be reprinting these as part of their the general stuff that they're reprinting from Gary. I don't know. I don't have a specific time frame, but I do believe that they're going to be redoing the entire series and probably in hardcover because they did come out with a hardcover edition of this way back before they lost the license. So. Anyway, do let me know what you think of this book. Have you read it? How do you like it? Specifically, how do you use it in your campaign, if at all? I'd love to hear from you. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day, and stay safe from Pinkertons.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.